I set the record for the most gauze used during a stage race. I crashed at the Tour of San Luis last year, like my whole right side, and I was like, F it, I'm finishing. I'm going to do this stupid stage race. So every night I went to his room and he would change all of it, and he said he brought a Grand Tour's worth and used it all up on me by like day 6. He had to find new. It was awesome.
It's the Lost in Transition podcast. I am your host, Chris Gerard. Phil Gaimon, you just heard from there. He is a retired pro cyclist, now living the worst retirement ever by his own naming and admission. He is going around the country chasing Strava KOMs, just seeing what a pro could do if they gave it all to Strava, and kind of making fun of, I think, a little bit of the seriousness that some people take to their Strava game. And you can catch his YouTube series. Also an author. He has his third book is coming out here in mid-October called Draft Animals, Chasing the Pro Cycling Dream Once in a While, and that will be releasing in mid-October. You can pre-order that now. We'll have a link up in the show notes of this episode. We talk about his books, his experiences racing. You heard there with finished up with Cannondale Drat Pack, and our friend and frequent Lost in Transition guest, Kevin Sprouse, was the one that got to use all that gauze on him. So a nice little connection, I guess, there. A great time talking to Phil. Coming up in the next week or two, we're going to have a show on how to get the most out of your off-season, as most of us are kind of looking toward their final A-race. Maybe already that A-race is in the books, and you're just kind of wondering, what now? It's important to give yourself a break. Also important not to lose all that you've worked so hard for. Lana Burrell and I are going to sit down and share our thoughts. Mostly Lana, because she has better ideas than me. But we'll share that here in the next week or two. Just pay attention to your subscription feed. If you subscribe, you won't miss an episode. It's really easy. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, the TuneIn Radio app, or even on YouTube. Sorry, no video yet. As we talked with Phil about his YouTube series, we kind of all agreed what a pain in the butt it is to produce video. He's got some great videos, though. We'll let him do all the hard work. Check out his amazing cinematography as he chases some of these famous Strava climbs around the country. And we are just going to be audio only for a little bit, at least, I'm sure. Listen online anytime at losttransition.com, Facebook and Twitter for all the social media updates. Connect with us there. Let us know who you'd like to hear on upcoming shows. This is show number 48, and I'd say probably about half of the shows we've done so far have been based upon listener suggestion. It's a great in for us to get to know people that maybe we haven't heard of already, and it's always great to be able to approach somebody for an interview saying, "You're in demand. Our audience wants to hear from you." Plus, it's less work for us. Who wouldn't want that? Phil Gaimon is next on the Lost in Transition podcast to talk about the worst retirement ever. Stay tuned. Phil Gaimon is an author, blogger, podcaster, and former pro cyclist, now hard at work on the worst retirement ever. When he's not working a 9-to-5, he's out chasing Strava KOMs on some legendary climbs and getting it all on video for a YouTube series. You may have read Phil's books, Pro Cycling on $10 a Day or Ask a Pro, and his new book, Draft Animals, Living the Cycling Dream Once in a While, is releasing in just over a month. Phil Gaimon, welcome to Lost in Transition.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Up until last year, you rode for a living, riding with teams like Garmin Sharp and Cannondale Drat Pack. For those whose cycling pro knowledge may not extend beyond the knowledge that Team Sky and Latour are things that exist, describe what the job of pro cyclist kind of looks like.
Pro cycling, I guess my experience was it's not as glamorous as most, or as you'd think of a pro sport in general, or definitely like what I pictured when I got into it. First, there's a whole, I came up in basically like cycling's minor leagues. That's like a good bit of the book, and all of my first book was coming up from that, and then the next book sort of covers it as well. But it's a lot of like, I was living out of my car, staying at host houses, that kind of stuff. But it's also, it's at that level, at the lower level where there's no money, everyone's just doing it because they love it. And it's sort of in a way like it's more pure, and I made some awesome friends that way. And it was a cool experience. And then, but it was a point where like, you don't want to be living out of your car at 30.
Right.
So in my head, I was always like, I got to get, I got to keep moving up. I got to keep moving up. And I finally win enough races. I get a contract in the world tour, and I got over there, and guess what? Like, that didn't solve all my problems. And I still had to create happiness. And that's sort of the book is like, oh, and I wasn't the best anymore. that was the other one is you get promoted, like you're the best in every room, and like, society kind of tells you follow your dreams, and if you work hard, the other guy, but like you don't hear about the other guy who turned out to be me, who you do all the work, and then like, you make the sacrifices, you put your head down, and then like not everyone gets to be Michael Jordan. And kind of like the guy who doesn't quite have the talent, who's like a little too short or not as lucky or whatever, like you're just missing something. For me, 15 watts would have been a lot of money and a life-changing thing, but that was sort of where I topped out. Like those people don't get the microphone so much. You don't really get to hear their stories, and that's where like everyone, you chase a dream, that's where you're going to likely end up. At some point, you've got to give it up or make peace with what you have and what you could be.
I didn't realize until I did a little research that you retired from Cannondale. Kevin Sprouse is here in Knoxville. That's his hometown. And
oh, no way. Nice. Kevin.
Yep, just saw him recently. So we've actually he is the reigning podcast guest at 3 times right now. So we'll have to have you back a couple to beat him. But
maybe we get both of you guys on at the same time.
I don't want to take any KOMs from Kevin, including podcast.
I know, right?
I set the record. You can confirm this with him, but he told me that I set the record for the most gauze used during a stage race. When I crashed at the Tour of San Luis last year, like my whole right side, and I was like, F it, I'm finishing. I'm going to do this stupid stage race. So every night, like I went to his room. This is stage 1 out of 7 or 8.
Oh,
right.
And every night I went to his room, and he would change all of it. And he said he brought a Grand Tour's worth and use it all up on me by like day 6. He had to find new. It was awesome.
You mentioned the book Pro Cycling on $10 a Day in 2014 about some of the trials and joys of being a pro rider. At what point did you start considering writing a book? At what point had you collected enough stories or experiences that became something that seemed natural?
I mean, I studied English in college. I before I went finger quotes pro at the low level, you don't really call that pro once you race in Europe. Like the bottom tier is kind of like, you guys aren't really pros. So and I feel that about my past self at that point. But so I did get an English degree, and kind of like writing a book is always something that I don't know. I'm just like a person. I like to tell stories. I was a kid on the school bus telling stories about God knows what was going on in my life then. And I kind of, at that point, like I sort of had a message, as I had just signed my World Tour contract, and I've been writing blogs for forever, and people sort of liked my style, and I kind of like had something I need to get off my chest, this is, at that point this is what it's really like, because there's all these kids who are like, oh, I want to be, on Jelly Belly. Phil has it made. And I'm like, my salary was $2,000 for the year. Like, for the year. So like, you don't, like, you think you want this, but you don't, and here's what it is. And then sort of like, and I sort of took that all the way up to the top of cool. Like, now I'm in Europe, I'm getting paid a living wage, and like some of my teammates are rich, but I'm living in a crappy apartment, and I'm racing down descents in the rain or snow. And it's kind of like you have to sort of carve out, what risks you can take and what risks you can't. And like, what point you draw a line of, like, I want to live past 30, or I want to not have road rash all the time, or I want to like see my friends in the off season, that kind of thing, the sacrifices and the life. And then also like there's so much great stuff to it. It was a lot of fun, in a ton of ways.
So when you think about that fun that you had, is there any moment or two that you can think of, while you were racing as a pro, where you just kind of stood back and said, wow, I'm actually really doing this? Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of those. There's so many, like, the sort of like in 2014, like, you get to Europe and it's a major shock. Like, it's just, because I was arguably the best guy in the US the year before. That's how I got that contract. And that was mostly on climbing. Like, that was my thing. And then I get to Europe and it's like, I attack on the climb and nothing happens. Like, the group is still behind me. and then Contador goes and it's like, oh, well, I can't do that. Like, that's, it is. So that was pretty interesting. Like, when you're at that level and you're racing the best in the world, sort of like having access to those people and the people who like know how to be at that level and see how they act, to be in the room with Olympians and Tour de France stage winners and stuff like that, and to sort of like be a peer at that level. And then, in Girona, that's where kind of like most of the Americans live. We had like a little text thread going, and it's just whoever's in town. It's like, hey, I have a 2-hour ride tomorrow. I want to do this climb and this climb. And so like, that's, oh yeah, I'm into that. I'll do that. And then you go on the climb, and then you're having a crepe on the Mediterranean and a coffee. That's it. That's sort of part of the book, is like, I'm carving out, like, you're living the dream once in a while. You've got to carve out the little dream for yourself and find it and make sure you don't miss it.
So you followed up your book in 2016, Ask a Pro. And you obviously got a lot of stories. Obviously, there's many from your perspective, but you probably also collected from other people. So, what are some of the things that people really want to know from the pros, and what are some of the strangest things that folks have asked about pro cycling?
Man, cycling is so complicated. Like, the whole, and I remember like getting into it. It's just like, do you wear underwear with the bib shorts? Like, it's. But the thing is, that's the thing. Like, I still don't know if I'm supposed to wear underwear when I run, or like sometimes the running shorts have a little net in there, like swim trunks. Mm-hmm. But do runners, they don't use that, right? No,
and I would recommend, if they're not in there, don't. Just don't. Personal experience, just don't. All right, okay. Well, you can ask that here. It's a safe place.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is off topic, but what should I actually wear? If I'm just going to go for a run, which I already would regret.
Right.
Like, I don't have any problems when I run down there, but what's the right thing? What, just shorts and your free balling? We could say balls.
Yeah, we can say balls here. I mean, I would see. Here's the thing. I don't have the same equipment, but I will say, if you're in something like tights or something like that, I would recommend without, because especially on a longer run, between the sweat and the chafing, it will leave a mark for days.
Well, I have like baggy shorts. I should be wearing tights, like that just keep it all in the same spot.
Yeah, that. Or if you do get the shorts, I mean, the ones with the liners. I mean, Chris, jump in here. So, yeah. What do you wear? He's like, come on, let me go.
All right. Support is always your friend.
Okay.
That's at least my personal experience, is that support is a good thing.
So you want the tights? No, I need you to be specific, because this is how I'm gonna do it.
I even will wear underwear with the tights. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
See, I'm shocked. See,
what kind of underwear?
But like a running, like a moisture wicking tight.
Okay, and then tights over that.
Specifically designed for running.
Running. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It also, when it's really wicked cold, it adds an extra layer to keep your butt from freezing.
I live in LA. I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, Chris, then
leave that dream.
Do you also go anti-chafing protection? Are you getting the body glide and everything with that? I think that's critical, right?
Anything and everything you can do for chafing protection, because
every seam.
Yeah.
Okay. That's shampoo butter. That's not the problem. I just don't know what the right garment is.
Yeah. I would I would find the most specifically designed thing for it and run with that, literally.
Okay. This is I've switched it. This is Ask a Triathlete.
Right.
Yeah.
Ask a Triathlete
we can talk
underwear
running.
questions.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, no, that's been bothering me, and I don't have anyone I trust. All right, so to get back to your question, no, I mean, it's very restrictive, and I think, like, I don't know, Ask a Pro was a magazine column I wrote forever, just kind of based on, people didn't ask me the nuts and bolts questions so much as they would ask, like, tactical questions or nutrition questions, but in general, like, it's just amazing how much disinformation is out there, and just how many like bad ideas can become common, or just like, oh, I heard, that World Tour guys do this. And it's like, I know a million World Tour guys and no one's ever done that. Like,
what's an example that jumps to mind, something like that? I'm curious now.
Nutrition. So like there was, the whole like gluten phase, and like some people are celiac and some people are intolerant, and that is real. But there was a point where like nobody touches gluten. Like there was a couple this was like 2013 for me. I was on a team and like gluten was frowned upon. And this was like an American team. This was like a low level kind of team with a bunch of good riders but we're all just guessing what it takes to be fast, right? Because like you just don't know what the top guys are doing. And someone told you, oh, gluten is out because that's inflammatory and you lose 2 pounds if you cut it. And then fast forward, I'm on Garmin Sharp, and I'm at training camp, and like these Belgian dudes are just eating a stack of white bread. And then dropping me, like they're just killing me, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not my problem.
Well, tell us how. Yeah, I'd like to know how we get out of that, because triathlon seems to have been stuck in that anti-gluten cycle. Yeah, we're woefully behind cycling in that.
Well, I mean, it's just the level. Like people get it in their head, and people just get like they focus on one thing, I think, and that's like the thing that they're sort of working on right now, and to a detriment. Like a little detail like gluten, like unless you're celiac, isn't going to make or break your day. Like I was at a ride, the Mammoth Grand Fondo the other day, and they had like a pro panel, and the people could do like a Q&A thing, and someone asked like, this is a 100-mile century ride. And somebody asked like, what cadence would you recommend for tomorrow? And I'm kind of like, that's like asking, to think about your cadence is like if you're taking a walk and you're like left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Like you can't live that way. Just go ride. Just like the cadence isn't your thing. Just whatever like the cadence that feels right that's your cadence. Like don't think like, oh, well, Lance used to attack at 120 RPMs. Like that's no. Like and I think people like just they overthink or they overanalyze, and they don't even know what to analyze, and there's no way to help. Yeah, it's years and it's experience, and it's like having access to the right people. I would always just find someone who was better than me and copy them until I was better than them, and then I'd find a new person.
So now that you're retired, I gotta imagine, so you're not out there copying anybody anymore. In fact, you're living the worst retirement ever by your own naming. So right. Do you feel, but you haven't been cycling basically for almost a year. Do you feel like your fitness, is that fitness gone? Do you still have that pro level of fitness? Where do you think you're at on the scale?
It's going down. I could feel it. I'm not gonna lie. There was a point. So like the end of last year, I started, I took a break, and I thought I was going to be racing this year. I had some like promising contract hope. And then, so I took my break. I started riding base training again, like November, maybe October or November. And then I found out like, oh, I'm not racing anymore. I sort of got the no from a couple crucial people. And so I started going after like Strava KOMs in LA basically. And then from doing that, I think like, so I had many years of excellent training of just doing really hard stage races. And especially like last year was a lot at the World Tour level. And I kind of just took that into Strava, like trying to get the most interesting Strava KOMs or the most contested KOMs. I had people request on Facebook which ones I would film on my YouTube show. And from going for Strava, so you think about like if you do like a really hard effort 2 to 3 times a week, like your fitness is going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And actually like I think because I stopped doing like super long like endurance training, I'm not doing stage races anymore. So I was basically just going for Strava. So I was doing nothing but like 5 to 60 minute max efforts. For a brief window, like a few months there, I got better at that. And that was really funny because my power profile was better than it ever was as a pro because it doesn't go up to 4 hours. But I was looking at that, I was like, man, I could do 400 watts for an hour. That would have been nice last year.
If only you knew.
Like, I have no repeatability. I have, like, it wouldn't have applied. Like, if you put me in a race, then I'd been in big trouble. But, like, on the little profile, on the chart on Training Peaks, boy, was that beautiful. But now, like, I'm not doing the 7-day stage races anymore. So it's still like I can usually win the group ride, but not always. There's a couple young pros or up and comers who make me earn it. And I'm trying to be an adult, I guess. I'm trying to like be less competitive. I'm trying to be the best me, which might include like seeing my friends on a Friday night, which I didn't get to do for 10 years, that kind of thing.
Nice. Nice. Well, so you haven't totally stopped training, though. I mean, this year we know that you won 2 big hill climb races: the national championships that were held at Pikes Peak in Colorado, and then the Mount Washington, the road race climb, which you've won a couple times in the past. You won it again this past year.
Right. No, I'm not. I haven't let myself go. It's just not. It's very different. To be good at a hill climb is those efforts were both like an hour 5 and 51 minutes or something. So you don't have to do massive weeks. And basically, like as long as I keep doing these efforts and I don't get fat, I'm going to be able to keep it going. But I'm not seeing like so Mount Washington, I did 3 minutes faster than when I won it as an actual pro a very long time ago, which was interesting. But it's not. I could tell like it just hurts a little bit more. I recover a little bit slower than I used to. Like I can do like one really big day now. It used to be, a year ago I'm doing 30-hour weeks. And you just feel good like the whole time, and it's your job, and you've done a bunch of 30-hour weeks, you're coming off stage races. You're just like, it doesn't hurt to ride that long. And now like I can do a big day and I can have great numbers and I can be faster than I was on Mount Washington, but like the next day I'm tanked. Right. Whereas before I could keep going, but like I'm like my repeatability, my recovery, like it's not there, and it's definitely still like better than most people who ride bikes in America, but as far as like the level that I'm used to, it's not there. And it definitely just 400 watts feels a little bit harder than it used to.
Well, certainly for all the years of training, in part of what you've done with the worst retirement ever, it feels like a shame to let it go to waste. On the other hand, being such a cookie aficionado, it seems a shame to have to stay in shape, doesn't it?
Well, thank God I ride bikes, or I'd have been fat. I think the whole cookie thing, like, so I like cookies and I appreciate cookies, and part of that is because I love cookies, I won't let them make me fat because I don't have to stop eating cookies.
There you go. There you go.
So part of what made me a cookie expert is the fact that like if I can't eat all the cookies I want, I'm going to limit myself to like the greatest cookies.
There's a top 10 list on your website. We're going to link up to that.
If you Google cookie rankings, my website is number 1. I'm the fourth most. Like Sports Illustrated asked me to write an article about the top 10 cookies in America. Like no one else is doing that. I think I can say I'm one of the top cookie experts in North America, which would put me up there in the world. It's something that, and the thing is like people mail them to me. People like message me like, oh, you're in this town, you got to try this. And I do. And it's been a fun like side project of like, I'm going to be on a 6-hour ride. Like, where am I going to stop for my cookie today?
Nice. And it's a great public service because I agree with you. No one should have a mediocre cookie. Yeah. If
you have a mediocre cookie, like that's just, I don't know, that's just empty. That's bad calories. Like if I take a bite of a cookie that's not worth it, like I don't spit it out generally, but like, don't finish that. Don't eat a Chips Ahoy. Don't do that to yourself.
PSA right here.
You're better than that, Chips Ahoy. You're better than that.
And the cool thing about the whole cookie is like the way it snowballed in the last few years I was racing was like so amazed because I thought it was a funny thing to write on my website before I even had a blog, was the cookie ranking stuff. And then like someone brought me their cookie at a race. And then I told them, I posted a tweet on, I had 200 followers or something then. And then the next race I go to, someone else brought me a cookie. And then like gradually it snowballs to like my last year racing, the Tour of California is my home race now. Like the bus would pull up in the parking lot and there's like 5 people waiting outside with plates of cookies that saran wrap. And it was just the most amazing thing that like I could never have planned that or expected or asked for that. But like people are making cookies for me or buying it. It was so cool. And the mechanics all love me because they end up with like, I'm going to have a bite and then give it away. And all like the whole team, one of the soigneurs and massage therapists would be like, hey, Phil, can you tweet tomorrow and see if we can get some ginger snaps? So, yeah, man.
Ask and it will be delivered. That's for sure. So since we're off in this corner, as the expert, what makes a really good cookie in your opinion, and what makes a really bad cookie? What's the mistakes that people might make in cookie baking? Do you make any yourself?
I don't bake. I don't.
Why would you have to?
That's the thing is, if I don't want to have them in the house like that, and that's part of the other reason is I have the high standards for cookies. Is like if I buy a dozen, they're going to get eaten in 5 minutes. So I'll go out for cookies, and it's part of the trip. I have to go there, I have to get them, and if somebody mails them to me, they're done. I just don't have the self-control for that, and so I can't have chocolate chips in the cupboard. They're not going to make it into a cookie.
I feel your pain. Yes.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, they need to be fresh. That's like the main thing is if they're individually wrapped and saran wrap under a screen, like I'm not falling for that. And like the right amount of chocolate, the right amount, like the sea salt, a touch of sea salt is really nice. Mm-hmm. Sort of, and then like if you like don't get too fancy. It's really just like the chocolate cookie is like a very simple thing, and it must be respected. Like it's you have to make the best chocolate cookie. You have to like respect what that is, and like it needs to be big, but not a pancake. Yeah, I think I mean there's a lot of things, and some of it just like it's taste. It can't be really described. It's in a way it's personal, but it's a fun journey to say like, oh, I see what you guys did with that, yeah, like a little pistachio dust. Okay, that's interesting. That's not like an improvement on the cookie, but it's not an insult to the cookie. It respects the cookie.
Nice. So, in speaking of respecting cookies, you have been cited many times. I've seen you on the video, actually. I remember it from Tour of California this year, and also, obviously, I see the stuff on Twitter, but you've had sponsored and provided cookie corners at some of the races.
Yeah.
So do you have plans to continue that next year, or are you just going to kind of wake up one morning and be like, let's do this?
That was so when I retired, one of the things that I was sort of looking to do is think like, I just wanted to do cool stuff around bikes that wasn't trying to win races, because that wasn't an option for me anymore. And so part of that was to put on this fondo where the people used to bring me cookies, and I don't want to like, because I have the whole cookie thing, because the purity of it is so awesome, because it was so organic. Like I don't want to sell cookies. I don't want to come out with like a line of nutrition cookies or something. People have asked me that for 5 years now. Like I don't want to ruin the purity of it. But what I do is I have a cookie fondo. So I have a one-day event where people come and they ride all my favorite roads in Malibu, which is the most beautiful riding in the world. And my good friend Jeff Mahan is a celebrity chef. He's on Food Network and all that, and he has 1 million restaurants, and he makes the number 2 cookie on my website. He makes an amazing chocolate cookie, and so now it used to be that people brought me cookies, and now I give the cookies back to the people. So you come to my ride, you pay an entry fee. We give money to No Kid Hungry, the Chef Cycle charity that Jeff set up, and then the top of every climb at all the rest stops. There's like gourmet celebrity chef cookies that will knock your socks off. And so, yeah, that's the deal. And then we have other celebrity chefs from Chef Cycle cooking at the finish. So that's where the cookie thing has evolved. That's sort of my way to return the cookies to the people. And then the way we promoted that was, events want to go to events, and there's, you can go to the expo at the Tour of California, you sit in the booth, and we did that for a few days. And then it was, people come by, they think we're selling cookies because we're giving cookies away. We have a jar of cookies, and I don't know. It just seemed it was a lot more fun to just be on course and dress up weird or be shirtless and wear a Cookie Monster hat and get on TV and just be super annoying. And like all my friends are in the pack and they got it. So that was that. Like they all, Mount Baldy is like the closest mountaintop finish to me in the Tour of California. I live in LA. It's like an hour away, and like so all my buddies race up. And then they finish and they have to ride back down to the buses, and they all stop at Cookie Corner for a few minutes and talk. And it was like kind of a touching, awesome moment that also, and Peter Sagan rides a wheelie through Cookie Corner.
That's right.
It was so cool of him to do that. Cause we just had a big crowd there. I just like told people, hey, here's the spot. Here's where you party Tour of Cali. We've got signs, we've got stuff. And it's promote Phil's Fondo. And half the people probably didn't know what they were promoting or what Phil's Fondo is. But I like that, people in Europe are watching the Tour of California, like, there are all these weirdo Americans holding cookie signs and chasing Peter. And then
they're running around in clean bottle costumes and Borats, so yeah, hey, we're even.
Right. No, it ended up, it was a ton of fun. It was a good way for me to like, I never thought I'd want to go to a bike race again. I'll be forever bitter about, pro cycling. Like it's tough to get spit out of a sport. But I reclaimed it that fast. I went to the Tour of California and had a ton of fun. So that's the Cookie Corner story.
Nice. And now your Fondo though is growing quickly. You've got a ton of sponsors, like you mentioned, the chefs that are there, and obviously you probably got some pros or former pros, including yourself, that are riding. It's quite something.
Yeah, I think the thing is like the riding in Southern California is amazing. Like there's a little stretch between Santa Monica is like kind of the edge of LA and the skyscrapers and the business part of the city. And then if you go north from there, like for 40 miles, there's PCH, there's the road along the ocean, right? We know that's beautiful. And then there's Mulholland Highway at the top of this ridge. So it's like 3,000 feet up. And it just kind of winds along the ridge, and then connecting PCH and Mulholland are just a bunch of tiny little twisty, beautiful climbs that you don't drive on unless you live there. Like they're horrible to drive on. They're just twisty and tight. Like if you're there, like Waze lost you. And so that's like where I started training. Like I've been living here for 3 years, and I got here and I was like, oh, LA is going to suck. And then I was like, oh wow, no, this is actually. Like you can't say it's the best place to ride in the world, but it's a 10-way tie with the best place to ride in the world. Like it doesn't get any better. And then you can coast into Beverly Hills and have a fancy cookie. Or you can go to Jeff's restaurant in Santa Monica. You can go to M Street and get an amazing cookie. Like I was shocked and stoked about LA and just how great the riding is there. So here's sort of, all my teammates like, oh, how do you ride in Los Angeles? I'm like, it's not all the 405. It's not all that traffic. It's so here's like a way to sort of show that to people. And so that was kind of the start of it is people don't know how good the riding is. So here, but it's also like a major city and there's a great cycling community here. So it wasn't too hard to like build an event, a mass market event. Like Southern California deserves a 5,000 person fondo. So hopefully we get there eventually.
LA sounds like a beautiful place to retire. And getting back to the KOM Strava challenge that you started this past year, that actually, if I recall correctly, began in LA with some segments that you had noticed something a little bit amiss with. There was a mystery person that was kind of on top of all of them. Explain a little bit more about the story behind the worst retirement ever and the Strava challenge that you're up to.
Yeah, I came into that whole thing like on chapter 10, I wasn't ever on, like when you're a pro, we don't look at Strava. Like maybe you'd look at it before a race to see like how long it takes or something like that. But generally, like it definitely doesn't factor into your training. Like if I had a 20-minute effort, I had a climb, I would do my 20-minute repeats on, and I'm not worried about like, did I finish the segment or not? Like I just turn back around and do it. Like that's your job. So that whole world was like off the radar of people. But I guess there was a guy who had tested positive for something many years ago and served a suspension, and then he got caught for selling EPO online, and it turned out that like he had a fake name on Strava that was on top of all the leaderboards in the city. These are like a lot of them are like urban, but then he had some times like in the LA canyons where like pro teams have their training camps he was up there on a lot of those too. And I guess like the city just in general, like a lot of the cyclists there were like the good riders who just cannot beat this guy, and so they blame it on his drug history or whatever. And so I kind of like the day or a couple days after I realized I was done racing, I go on the group ride. There's like a fast ride that starts near me in Hollywood, so it's called Nichols Ride. So like and it ends up being like the second most contested segment in the city is Nichols Canyon. It's this like 10-minute climb up past like Madonna's old house and just straight up from Hollywood Boulevard. And I went up I just did the group ride kind of grumpy. So I ripped Nichols Canyon and I took the Strava, and like my phone blew up like I just won Redlands or something at the end of the ride. Like, it was like I hadn't been posting on Strava much, but like I just uploaded because why not? And my phone, and I'm like, oh, like you guys like this? You guys like to knock this guy off the thing? Fine. And I was at that point, like I'm still under contract with Cannondale. I have nothing to do, and I'm still, paid for another few months. So I was just like every other day I'd take a day off or I'd take a rest day, and then I'd go take a Strava. And the thing is, like, no one in LA could beat this former doper guy, but like I'm a world tour climber. Like I happen to be here. But it wasn't. There were a couple that like I had to taper for, but for the most part, like I could just at will clean all the leaderboards up. And when it turned out like that like Cycling News picked up an article about like the cycling community thought it was pretty hilarious because it is. Mm-hmm. No one had ever. Part of the thing I think is like pros. There are pros who are on Strava, but no one had ever taken Strava that seriously, who was sort of that level. So that was sort of my idea is like, okay, I have relationships in the industry. And at that point, like, I'm getting into, I live in Hollywood. I'm trying to sell like a travel show. And I'm like, okay, what if I just make my own show and I'm going for Stravas and I take them way too seriously? And what does that look like? What does it look like if you're a professional Strava person? And so I'm the first and only who is doing that. And it ends up, it's super fun. It's something, the whole idea of like something that shouldn't be taken that seriously, and me going completely overboard with a speed suit, and I've got like Cannondale.
Your equipment. I mean, I remember you've cut the drops off your bars, you take your brakes off. I mean, yeah.
Cannondale gave me like their high-end bike and like all souped up. It's like, I think it's like 13 pounds now.
Oh God.
Like I told Mavic what I was doing, and they send me like the $3,000 tubular wheels, the carbon. And I'm looking at my bike. It's like better than anything I ever had when I was racing. It's so awesome. I got ceramic. I got the ceramic speed chain that's got the weird powder on it, and the weird fancy lube on it. No, it's so much fun. It's like I've just been laughing all year at what I get to do. So it's been a true blessing, and people seem to be entertained by it. Is a good part. Is people are watching the YouTube stuff and they're kind of appreciating my sponsors for it. And
well, I'll admit I've been entertained. It's been fun to see somebody sort of take a kick at Strava you put some light on it in the right way, because if somebody's doping to get Strava KOMs, that's really messed up.
That's the thing. Like it's just when I don't know. I've done bike races. There are bike races. Like I did it for a long time. Like I know what it feels like to win a bike race. Winning a KOM isn't that. And I don't think Strava is meant for that. I don't think Strava wants to be that. Like I think in their office, like they don't want to be competitive. like Strava is a place. It's a social media app. It's not a sport.
Right.
But it's a beautiful way to like express yourself. Like today I did a 5-hour ride. I did 10,000 feet of climbing. I stopped for a gelato. And I had and like Strava is a way like I can express my workout as art. Like, and I love it for that. But like, you know, if I take someone's KOM and they're pissed off, like, man, that's on you. Like if this moves your emotional needle, like you need help and the thing is, it's, you know, it's big fish, small pond. Right. And I'm kind of like, and for every neighborhood and every community and every city, there's a big fish in the small pond. And a lot of people are like, okay, now I'm the biggest fish in this pond. And like, I'm just going to eat everybody. And just so you see what it is, just so you thought you were good, here's what a world tour rider does. And I'm not even, and I know 50 guys who'd kill me. Right. That's kind of the thing is every climb I go to, I'm like, yeah, okay. I smashed the one in your neighborhood, like Old La Honda in San Jose, or where is that? Silicon Valley, whatever, that area. That's like their legendary climb. And so the Strava record was 14:45. But there's like a legendary record from 1980 something by a pro that was 14:10, and there's forums about it, and there's all this analysis like, well, if you could do under this, then you could, you know, win the Tour de France. Because it's Silicon Valley, they dork out hard, but like right. that was like the most contested segment on Strava, and on the way to a cookie corner, I just kind of was passing through, so I didn't film it or anything, but I was like, I'm gonna and I smashed it. It was awesome. I put like 30 seconds on the legendary fast time, and it was a good day for me, to be honest. It was, but it goes up there. I'm like, okay, this is this thing you guys have been doing. Here's what a real pro would do. Like you guys all, whatever your little world, this is, and I want you to understand, Mike Woods would put 20 seconds on me or more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, I got to appreciate you. You reminded the almost nearly 100% of people on Strava that cycling is their hobby.
Yeah. And it's like, if you want to be good, like it's a decade, just go give up a decade and, you know, sit in an apartment in Girona and go flog yourself. But I don't know, it's real. And I think people, I guess that's part of my book too. Like one of just my message that I'm trying to get across is people should just be realistic. Like, you know, it's not everyone. And I had to be realistic myself. I had to say, you know what, like, I am not the best. I don't have excuses. I don't have anything. Like, you know, I'm going to step aside for some 22-year-old to take my job, and fingers crossed he does it better in a couple of years.
And that leads right into the new book, Draft Animals, coming out here just over a month. And what can people expect from this book? And are there some stories maybe you feel a little more at liberty to tell now that you're not dependent upon a team and their sponsors for a paycheck? Are the gloves off a little bit more? Not that they were ever on, I guess. But.
Right. No, that's part of my problem is I never put the gloves on. I probably would have lasted longer. No, I mean, so the book, you can pre-order it now. It's up now, and people, please do. If you're going to get it now, because if you need like a good launch. This is my only hope to get like a New York Times bestseller if this one works, because I don't have another book in me. I emptied it out. But basically, like it's. I guess first and foremost, the cycling audience will be interested in. This is an insider's look at the World Tour. This is what it's actually like to live that life and to work to be at that level. And no one's like, some guys have written that book, but it's been ghost written. And those are the guys, you know, the Mark Cavendish, he got to write a book, you know, or someone wrote a book that he talked at them for a couple days. But this is sort of, I'm the only one or the first one who's sort of written it myself. And this is sort of, and it hasn't really been done, in the post EPO era. So it's not like a doping tell-all, which I think everyone's pretty sick of that. And I think people are just sick of the whole tell-alls in general. Like I talk about, you know, what it's like, and there were a couple deals and managers who didn't treat me well, or that kind of thing. And some teammates who don't come off great, and others who, like, you know, there's some dopers who I get to know really well, and I see their side, and I sort of get a glimpse into what that world must have been, and who these people actually are. So I'm able to kind of shed light on that. I think if you're a cycling fan, that's what you'll get into it for. And if you're not, I think the general thing is like the major theme I was trying to get to is like what it's like to chase a dream at the very end. I think a lot of people like have this thing in the back of their head. Oh, if only I'd not taken a job at 22 and focused on that, this is where my life would be and all my problems would be solved and, my wife would be hotter. And it's kind of like, no, this is like, because I did that. Like I went through all of that and like, you still have to just make something and appreciate your own life. And essentially it's on you, and you can't have this like one more step up the ladder mentality. I think that's sort of, my generation is a victim of some kind of American dream bullshit that I hope will make people feel better about it whether they didn't try or whether they failed somewhere I didn't earlier on the path. I think folks might get a kick out of that.
Well, now that you're in retirement, are there plans to retire from the worst retirement ever? I mean, you keep making videos and obviously have come to even our part of the country, the Southeast, with Mount Mitchell and I believe Lookout Mountain as well.
No, I was planning to I did Lookout in Denver. There's another Lookout in Chattanooga that I was planning to get to, and that trip fell through. As long as I can find, the thing is like, when I started doing this, I had no idea how much work it was going to be and how expensive it is to make videos.
Yeah.
So
there's a reason we're a podcast.
Right. And I also had no idea like how impactful it would be and how much people would like it. Like by YouTube standards, like my channel has done very well, but it's far from like being able to pay for itself. So we'll see. I think as long as I can make what I want to make, I'll keep doing it, and I think there'll be something next year. I'm going to have to retheme it a little bit, but I think it's going to be a little more interesting and more fun. I don't know what exactly it is yet, so I can't divulge that here. But as long as I can, I'm going to just keep making what I can do. That's sort of how I see my calling at this point. I could write a book. I wrote a book. So we'll see if this show exists.
Excellent. Well, the book is obviously what we want to push people towards. The pre-ordering is available now, and where should people go to pre-order that?
Anywhere's fine. Like, I mean, Amazon has it, Barnes & Noble has it. If you go to the Phil's Fondo cookie store, philsfondo.com, we have a little cookie shop, and we have for those you pre-order them, I'll sign all those, and we'll ship that. So you get a free autograph of me if you're interested in that for some reason. And you can also buy our cookie paraphernalia from the Fondo store if you can't make it out to ride with us.
Excellent. We'll link that up so people can get the pre-orders there, and that will be shipping in mid-October. And the website is philthethrill.net. And where else on social media? Obviously, the YouTube channel is where the video content is coming down. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, if they Google me, they can find me. It's at Phil Gaimon on Twitter and Instagram. The YouTube channel is Phil Gaimon Show, but just search my name, it shows up.
Right, and I'll link from the website, and we'll link that up in the show notes. And Phil Gaimon, it's been a pleasure having you on the Lost in Transition podcast. Best of luck in your awful, awful worst retirement.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks.
Our thanks again to Phil Gaimon for being our guest tonight on the Lost in Transition podcast. And we've got a chance for you to win Phil's new book, Draft Animals. We're going to be giving that away as a social media contest over the weekend. Both Facebook and Twitter. Our Facebook page is Lost in Transition Triathlon Podcast. Twitter is at Lost Transitions. Links to both of those on the website, losttransition.com. And here's the deal. We will run the contest through Monday around noon Eastern time. You can enter in both places to double your chance of winning. And other than that, there's not a whole lot of rules. You can check them out on our Facebook and Twitter pages. And hopefully we can get you a copy of Phil's new book for one lucky winner. And coming up here shortly on the show, like I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be talking about how to make the most out of your off season. That'll be coming either next week or the week after. Just stay tuned, subscribe iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn Radio app, YouTube. Also listen at losttransition.com. Rate and review too, please, as well. We have quite a few good iTunes reviews out there. Really appreciate that. iTunes is where most of the listenership comes from, and every rating and review we get there helps boost us in the rankings. Well, I suppose maybe the really bad reviews might put us down in the rankings, but so far we haven't got any of those. Maybe you can be the first to really knock the show. Someone's got to do it, right? Anyway, all your suggestions for guests, all of that's very much welcome. Just email us or hit us up on social media. And check out our friends over at Crushing Iron, their podcast, twice a week, turning out episodes like crazy out there. They are on show number 93, it looks like right now. Some recent episodes, Mike Tiroli goes up to Madison to talk about Ironman Wisconsin, a race that's got a lot of meaning for him as a native Wisconsinite or cheesehead or whatever those people like to be called up there. Check out the all-new CrushingIron.com. We'll be back with you shortly. For Lana Burl, I'm Chris Gerard. Until next time, may all your transitions be smooth.